The Wicked Prince Jaja. Opening scene, The Fall. In the prosperous Yoruba kingdom of Ara Isle, Prince Jaja ruled with an iron hand. Though the only son of the Oba, Jaja had no regard for the aged, the poor, or the suffering. His cruelty knew no bounds. One fateful day, an old man visited the palace gates, begging for food and shelter. Jaja scoffed at him. "Get out, old fool. Your presence offends me." He ordered his guards to drive the man away. The old man, leaning heavily on his staff, looked at Jaja and said, "Your arrogance blinds you, Prince. A time will come when you will wander like the lost, and only then will you learn to serve." Jaja laughed and turned away. But that night, a fierce storm swept through the kingdom. When Jaja awoke, he was no longer in his grand palace but deep in a dense, unfamiliar forest. He was stripped of his royal robes and left with nothing but tattered clothes. Scene 2, The Widow's Compassion. Days passed, and hunger gnawed at Jaja's stomach as he wandered the forest aimlessly. His pride was the only thing stronger than his despair. One morning, Aya Olabunmi, a kind widow from a nearby village, found Jaja sitting weak and exhausted by a stream. Her crippled son, Tunde, sat on her lap, watching curiously. "Who are you, young man?" Aya Olabunmi asked gently. "I am a prince," Jaja snapped, though his disheveled appearance betrayed him. The widow raised her brow but said nothing. She handed him a calabash of water and a small loaf of bread. "You must be hungry. Come to our home. We will help you." Jaja hesitated but followed her. At her humble hut, she offered him a place to sleep and more food. Instead of gratitude, Jaja grumbled. "This is beneath me. I should not be living among commoners." The widow smiled patiently. "Pride will not feed you, young man. If you wish to eat, you must work." Scene 3, The Stubborn Prince. At first, Jaja refused to do any chores. He sat idly while Aya Olabunmi tended to her farm and cared for Tunde. But hunger forced his hand. One day, the widow handed Jaja a hoe and pointed to the field. "If you want to eat tonight, you'll help me clear the weeds." Jaja tried but gave up after a few strokes. "This is slave labor," he cried. "Even princes must learn the value of labor," Tunde said softly, watching from the shade of a tree. "Strength without wisdom is like an empty drum, it makes noise but has no purpose." Jaja glared at the boy but said nothing. Days turned to weeks, and Aya Olabunmi's patience never wavered. Slowly, Jaja began to help with small tasks, fetching water, chopping firewood, and tending to Tunde's needs. Though reluctant, he noticed that his body grew stronger, and his heart, though heavy, began to lighten. Scene 4, Discipline and Transformation. One evening, as they sat around the fire, Tunde shared a story of a brave hunter who lost his way in the forest. The hunter survived because he listened to the wisdom of the animals. Sometimes, the strong must bow to the wise. Jaja listened in silence, the boy's words echoing in his mind. The next morning, Jaja took the initiative. He woke early, carried Tunde to the stream, and returned with buckets of water. He worked the fields alongside Aya Olabunmi, no longer complaining about the sun's heat or the blisters on his hands. "Why are you helping us now?" Tunde asked. Jaja hesitated before answering. "Because I have nothing else, and perhaps, in serving you, I can find myself again." The widow smiled. "Discipline is the root of growth. You are learning what it means to live not for yourself but for others." Scene 5, Restoration. One day, after weeks of labor and humility, Jaja was chopping firewood when the same old man he had driven away appeared at the edge of the field. The man's eyes gleamed with wisdom as he approached. "Prince Jaja," the old man said, "you have learned discipline and service. Your heart has softened, and your pride has been tempered." The widow and Tunde looked on in amazement as a golden light surrounded Jaja. His tattered clothes transformed into royal robes, and the strength of a true prince returned to his body. "Go back to your kingdom," the old man said. "But remember the lessons you've learned here." Closing scene, A Just Leader. Jaja returned to Ara Isle a changed man. He sought out the widow and her son, bringing them to the palace as honored guests. The villagers, once terrified of him, rejoiced at his transformation. As the new king of Ara Isle, Jaja ruled with wisdom and compassion, ensuring no one in his kingdom was left to suffer. And so, the tale of the wicked prince who found redemption became a legend, passed down to remind future generations, even the mightiest must learn to bow before wisdom and kindness.